Hey, good evening. My name is Nathan. Folks know me as Man in Overalls. I'm founder of Overalls, an urban ag team in Jacksonville, Florida. We work to grow and support others in growing groceries for self and neighbor. And we're in this world with y'all. And as y'all know, time is always an issue, always running out of time. And so we have been implementing a lot of measures to save our time as best as we can. So at least these things that are routine, they can be automated. But the big idea is to investigate, to make sure you're going in the right direction, to eliminate the distractions, to automate what you can, to habituate or make a habit out of um, things that are relatively simple or even complicated, but are routine, and then delegate to other folks those things that you don't have to be the one to do. So let's jump into it. Before we get into the mess of it, I just want to give you something to take away right off the bat, just in case all you've got is 5 minutes, and then you're going to skip on to the next presentation. If you go to overalls.wtf, you will see a copy of our issues log. It may be the least sexy thing that is in my presentation tonight, but it is arguably the most valuable tool that we have used and has saved us days and weeks and probably months over the past couple of years. Because what we do is whenever we encounter a headache, a major pain that is causing us emotional distress because we're wasting time or money or having conflict, what have you, which all of those things end up affecting your time. We log it. We say, what was the major thing that happened? Why? What's our hunch about why that happened? Do we have an idea if about how it might be resolvable? Then we'll note that. But it's fine to just say like, hey, this is the problem. This is what went down. And then what we do is we don't deal with it right then, because you're in the midst of operations. You just have to kind of like improvise and do the best you can in the moment. But then whenever we have a lull, then we come back to those things. And those are the things that we build solutions for saving time and money and to avoid headaches. Because whenever you encounter an issue, there's always the problem. There's always the complaining and banter that you have to deal in order to just get through it. But then there's this like backlog of mental fatigue that happens because this problem happened. And so if you can, over time, you can evolve your team and your operations so that you don't have to encounter those same pains again, then you save just oodles of time and oodles of headspace, which makes you faster, right? Which also saves you time. So go to overalls.wtf. Literally like right now, just like click pause. All right, cool. All right, we're back. So you got that. Let's go on with other things. But if nothing else, take that with you. And if you like that that issues log, I've got all kind of business resources on our resources page. So if you just go to overalls.tips, it's a little hot link that goes to our resources page. Just scroll right to the bottom and you will find our all our business tools. So let me show you this. So this is our issue log. You just say like who it was, what was like in a morsel, what it was, what happened. Do you have an idea about how to fix it? Who's responsible, so that those people can be held accountable and also be engaged in solution solving? How severe was the issue? What was the division or whatever? And if there were like related tidbits, then you can make those notes too. And the fix part is left blank. And here's what you can do when you open it up, there'll be like a little button up here and you can say like, save a copy, and then you can put that in your drive and use it. And the biggest thing to make use of it is to start sharing it with your team so folks can log their issues, and then y'all can evolve and iterate. Here's my resources page. So down here at the bottom are all the business things. I'll come back to this at the end, but everything more or less that I talk about today is going to be referenced here. So let's jump back to that presentation. This is how you save time. You investigate to make sure that you're going in the right direction. because it doesn't matter how fast you are, how automated you are, if you're going in the wrong direction or an unprofitable direction, then you're just spinning your wheels. So you want to investigate, you want to eliminate distractions, waste, you want to automate things, habituate, But let's talk more about investigating right now. So this is a weird segue to talk about an airline amidst a Foodscaper summit. But I read this great book. It's called Blue Ocean Strategies. It's worth checking out. And it centers around the story of Southwest Airlines and what they did, the way they kind of broke into the airline industry was that they looked at they call it the competition landscape of all these competitive factors, like what are the snacks, what ports do you go to, what are your prices, how comfortable are your seats, all these different things that you judge an airline by, right? And then they asked, like, what do customers really care about? And they're like, well, honestly, what people really care about is not like whether or not there's 14 or 15 peanuts in a package. What they really care about is getting places fast, on time, and cheaply. That's what they care about. So like this whole practice around assigned seats, they're like, no, that's got to go. We're not doing that. We're going to eliminate that because it's going to accelerate how fast we can board planes and disembark. That'll reduce our cost, our docking fees at airports. And so then we'll be able to pass those savings along to customers. People don't really care about peanuts. They care about good service and getting from point A to point B. So they focused on direct flights as much as they possibly could in order to accelerate the speed. And so what you do is you say, what are the things that customers really care about? And how do we do those really well? And then what are these things that like maybe you have to do, right? But what are all these other things that the customers actually don't care about that you can like vastly reduce or just eliminate altogether? Because when you can do that, then you like, boom, you break into the like blue ocean, which apparently is a sailing term. And it's like, it's you're on easy street or whatever. So the questions to explore your blue ocean is, what do your customers really want? And then like, what are your major constraints? What do you have to do or need to get done in order for it to work for you? And it's key to understand that the distinction between what customers really want and what they're already buying are not necessarily the same thing. When folks buy soda at a ball game, do they really want soda, or do they really want to get cooled off, and they really want their thirst quenched? That doesn't necessarily mean soda, right? So you can think about mixing it up. So let me give you an example. We wanted to have a neighborhood-based farm. I'm intrigued by this idea that food can and should be grown proximate to where people live, and that there should be a competitive advantage to doing so because there's so much less transaction costs. However, I helped start this youth farm in Tallahassee, and a couple of things didn't work about it. One was we had market days twice a week, 2:30 to 5:30, and it just wasn't frequently enough for folks to build a habit pattern around it. And the other problem was when people actually did come, it was a youth farm. So the youth were responsible for like receiving them, harvesting their produce and checking them out or whatever. And they were terrible at it. It was a very slow process. So it could take 20 or 30 minutes to buy like a head of lettuce. And both of those things destroyed kind of like the customer experience. And so I was like, okay, somehow we have to have produce available to customers 7 days a week. They want it as available as Amazon or the corner store. We have to be able to provide that. But there's no way that I can pay for retail for somebody to just hang out on a small farm 7 days a week. That doesn't work. And so I thought, well, what if we could focus on growing the food as farmers, and customers could come whenever they want and harvest. So that's what we do. So folks pay a subscription every month, like Netflix, and then they can come, you pick whatever they want, whenever they want it. We never have to harvest or go to market, and they never have to wait for market. And it's kind of perfect. And it's created this really cool economic abundant mentality where folks, if they need more, they just can come back. And so they don't have to like hoard or pick too much because they have access. And they also don't have to like load up their fridge because they can just come back, right? And it's around the corner. And it's turned the whole transactional chore of going grocery shopping into this like experience. So we, eliminated certain things, we did other things, but we figured out what is it that customers really want. And then we figured out how to provide it in a way that worked for them. And it ended up saving us about half of small farm labor, which was just awesome. So what are your blue oceans? What do your customers really want? What do you have to do? And then what are the things that's just waste that you could just chuck and get rid of? And so save yourself just oodles of time and resources and energy and, issues, whatever. One fantastic tool that, again, is linked in my resources at Overall Tips is this value proposition canvas. This is a really tight way to learn to visually present what your customers want and how your products and services kind of like fit hand in glove with that. So you can see on here, you've got like, what is it that they're hoping to gain? What are they hoping to avoid, their headaches, and what's their job? So for our farm, right, they want organic local produce. They really, it's funny, we found this out by asking every one of our customers what their headaches are that they're hoping to avoid. They hate driving. Oh my gosh, my neighbors, they hate getting in their car and going to the grocery store. I would have never known that. So the fact that they can come and get produce and herbs right here without having to drive to an adjacent neighborhood where the store is, they love that. And then they just, their job is that they have to source produce for their families. So our farm provides like the freshest, the localest, and organic, and like it's accountably organic, right? Like they're there on site, so they see what practices are happening. They don't have to get in their car. In fact, instead, they get this refreshing walk around the block and get to visit this little farm oasis. So it relieves that pain of having to drive. And of course, our product and service is that farm membership. So this is an awesome way to just make sure that what you're doing fits what your customers really want and what they really don't want. And you can sketch this out. Like if you know your customer, you can sketch out their customer profile in 5 minutes, or you can have a conversation with them and like make sure you ask these questions so that you get a sense of it. We did this with the first like 25, 30 customers in that pilot Overall's Farm, the subscription you pick, to make sure that we're on track. And so now we have a business model that we know fits hand in glove, which means that we're not wasting time like iterating and coming up with random ideas. We know the core of what folks want, and so then now we can go after it. Another tool, I won't dig into this heavily, but this business model canvas is an awesome way to explore a new business model. If you're, you're like, what, we do foodscaping, but we're interested also in this like compost pickup business, or we also want to do a little farm, or we want to start a workshop series, whatever. You can sketch out a business model in 10 to 30 minutes, no problem. Looking at who it's going to serve, what's the value proposition, how you're going to reach people, what are your key activities, your resources, who your partners are that you need to engage in order to make that happen. And then what are the costs and what are your revenue sources to make all that work. And then the cool thing is because it's so fast to sketch a business model, you don't have to spend like 2 or 3 days drafting a business plan. You don't have to hire someone to help you write a business plan. Right. And also you can validate and invalidate business models really fast because you can say, well, should we do the compost thing or should we do a little mini farm? And instead of it taking weeks or months or years to answer that question, maybe you can eliminate one of those choices in 30 minutes with this tool. I use this even just when I had to restart our business in Jacksonville from Tallahassee. I said, what is it that we're really doing? And so I sketched my business model out like this. And then I went about like testing and validating because one of the things that this business model canvas is great at is it's like a sketch, but then you have to make sure that what your assumptions are actually true and workable. Anyhow, if you want more on that, read the Lean Startup, or there's a great book called Business Model Generation, if you're exploring business models. So I know you're here to save time, and maybe you're thinking like, oh, give me the gimmicks, like I want to automate this and that. And we're going to talk about that. But it's really important to know that until you know what your customers want, and until you know that you can deliver that value to your customers, kind of like nothing else matters, right? Everything else is wasted time. Like building systems on top of a value proposition that people don't want, that's wasted time, right? If you're yeah, I'll just stop there. You just got to know where you're going. So if you know where you're going, great. So learning is often your very best investment of time. If there's anything in play about whether or not you're going in the right direction, you've got to answer that question first, because otherwise you're just spinning your wheels and or wasting tons of time being highly productive but not getting anywhere. Yeah, you're like a hamster, right? Not getting anywhere. So now let's talk about eliminating. Now that you know where you're going, right? You have this sense of your business model, your value proposition for your customers. You need to eliminate distractions. You need to eliminate things that are just waste. So let's talk about that. We use this tool called V2MOM. It was developed by Salesforce, which is like the tech company. And it's a great way to align your team so that everybody's like rowing the same direction. And so that when shiny objects come across your, in front of your truck or whatever, you're not like, oh yeah, let's go do that thing, right? No, that's a distraction. What are you doing and how are you getting there? So this V2MOM illustrates, outlines what's the vision, where you're trying to go, what are your values, what's important as you go there, how are you going to achieve that vision, what are the obstacles and headaches kind of standing in your way, or that you just know will be a pain as you're trying to get there, and how are you going to measure your success? And the great thing about this, we do these seasonally, and let me show you this. This is our V2MOM for the fall 2021 season. We want to profitably delight over 100 families with direct access to agricultural abundance. That's what we're doing, right? If anything else comes up that's not helping us get there, it's a no, right? We just eliminate that. All that is distraction. And then you can dig in and you say, well, like, what's important? Okay, we've got to be good at our craft, yada, yada. We've got to just get shit done. Methods, and then we have like our measures of how we want to determine that we're successful. But this is a wonderful tool. I am prone to being distracted. And also the cool thing about this is if you have a V2MOM that says like, hey, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there, these are the things in our way, everybody on your team can make granular level decisions without having to have a meeting, without having to consult or ask you, maybe if you're the boss or leadership, everybody kind of has a sense of it. And so a lot of these friction moments in teams where you are trying to like resolve and figure out what to do or what to buy, what tool to get, yada, yada, that gets to fall into the background because people know where they're trying to get and they can make their own decisions because you've given them the context. All right. Another thing to do is to think about waste. I just want to tell a couple of stories. I had a farming mentor in Tallahassee, fantastic with plants, but he really walked more than he farmed because his house was here, his fields were all over here, his tool shed was here, his wash station was here, and so he spent his whole day walking. Like he'd be in a field and he'd be like, oh, I need my pruners. He'd be like, oh yeah, I left them in this field. So he'd go over there and he'd be doing something and then he'd be like, oh yeah, I need to turn the pump on. And so he'd have to walk half a mile. He walked probably 10, 12 miles a day, right? 10 or 12, that's 3 or 4 hours of walking instead of farming. Okay, so is there a way that you can design your space and your days so that you don't have to double back on yourself? For us, waste looks like dead gardens or like gardens that need replanting. One thing that we learned is that if we just left customers an extra plant or two, just in case something died, right, then we wouldn't have to go back and like bring a tray of seedlings because they just had some insurance. And those, $2 to $4 of plants cost way less than that time of driving across to bring them some extra broccoli. We used to use extension cords, right, to build with. We build lots of raised beds. And so the first thing we had to do when we showed up to a house was we had to like go find where the plug in, right, roll out this extension cord, hook up the saw, into the day in reverse. Now we don't do that. We just have high powered batteries, and we have larger battery powered saws. Okay, no more wasted time like that. We used to email back and forth with customers to schedule consultations. We used to email with customers about scheduling before they'd actually submitted a deposit. We don't do those things anymore, right? Once we have a deposit in hand, then we talk about scheduling. But before that, what if they just walk, right? Every email and all that time invested in scheduling, if they're not actually a viable customer, is just hot air, right? That's gone. Consults now we schedule with a scheduling tool online. I'll tell you about that more later. A couple of weeks ago, we had a misunderstanding about our magic mix, which is our like baseline soil mix that we put in all our raised beds we use on our farm. It's a compost-based soil mix. And because of a botched phone call, a botched understanding, then the mix, 40 yards of soil mix got mixed incorrectly. And so then we had soil going all over town that didn't have the right fertility in it. And so then we had to go back to all of those places and work in some extra supplemental organic fertilizer. That was a tremendous amount of wasted time, right? If we just had better communication in that moment, then we could have skipped all that headache. So what are your time sinks? What are the things that don't necessarily, you don't think about taking time, but they're just like a drag on you mentally. And so it makes you like slower and befuddled and make more mistakes. So even though like the one thing didn't take a long time, the like fallout did. And then what are the money wasters that are costing you money and thus your customers money, and maybe causing you to have like more conversations with your customers because you have to like justify expenses, yada, yada. That's all wasted time, right? This book is great. The Lean Farm, it's from the perspective of a small vegetable farmer, but it's definitely worth the look, even if you're doing stuff offsite. I think it's really valuable in line with this Lean Farm to document your systems. How do you actually create value in your business? What is the sequence of steps? So like, for instance, we don't give anyone an estimate until we have gone for a site visit for anything beyond like, a raised bed, right? And that's because inevitably what happens is we'll show up to a garden build based on an estimate, sight unseen, and then there'll be some added complexity. And that added complexity will require a tool or a supply that we don't have with us, right? And so now we're like doing all this juggling, wasting time when we could have just gone in one step and knocked it out. But because we didn't do a consult visit first, right? So we don't do that anymore, right? Consult visit, then estimate, then yada, yada. And those systems are really valuable. I love Kanban boards, which is this tool. It's just like simple columns of like, these customers or these projects are in these stages of development. And we use this for all of our inbound customers. And we actually use it every time a customer re-enters a season and say like, hey, we'd love you to come back. We run them back through this system. So for new customers, like I mentioned, there's a site visit. If we need to do supplemental research to find out pricing about a special feature or something, we do that. We send them a proposal. Then we follow up with them. If we haven't heard from them, we follow up, or we wait for a deposit. Once we get a deposit, then we move to lining up the job. I love this because it helps us prioritize our time. Clearly, we need to do a lot of follow-up right now based on this this stack of pipeline. It also helps us not stumble over ourselves by trying to line up a job before we have a deposit. Because when that happens, like I mentioned, it just wastes a bunch of time. Once you know your like general flow of value creation, documenting systems is just like, oh God, it's amazing for saving time. Because even if you're the one that's doing the system over and over again, if you have to try to remember all these steps, people are like, I don't have time to document systems. No, wrong. You don't have time not to document your systems. And you're like, well, I do it. I don't need to write it down. Yeah, you do. Because if you write it down, then you can have more systems and more standardization. Because what you can do is you can take 2 minutes, review your system, and then you do it. And then what you do is you don't accidentally forget a material. You don't accidentally forget a tool, right? You do things in the right sequence. And then when it's time to train somebody, you have a standardized system and a document that they can dig through before you dig into it, get into the nitty gritty. I use this with new contractors. Whenever we're in a pinch and we're like, oh my gosh, we can't keep up, we will hire some temporary contractors that can do deliveries for us. And our system for delivering Magic Mix is like dialed in. We've documented it. We've been refining it for several years. So it's got all the information in here that a contractor needs. And then what we do is we do one training run with them. So they read it, we do a training run. We go back through the SOP after they've done the training run with us. And we say, is there anything that doesn't make sense or you have questions about, right? Then it's very clear, like this is what needs to happen. And then we can let them go, right? Because we have a standardized documented system. And that saves us tons of time. Another system that I just love, and this is something that I do as the, like back of the house, is I have a system for how to do sales tax. I run this system and it's so valuable. It used to take me 3 to 4 hours to do my sales tax every month, right? It was like a half a day just sunk. Because of this system, I've just like dialed in, like click this button, go to this website, copy paste this, print this form, fill this thing out, divide this by that. I can do sales tax now in like 17 minutes, okay? Which means that every time I do my sales tax, I save myself 3 hours because of this system, all right? Yeah, I love documenting systems. It's like so high ROI. One cool thing to do is like you can integrate pictures into your systems and be like, this is what it should look like. And one note about systems, people think that a system, documenting a system means that it can't change. And that's just bullshit. We have our SOP template on Google Drive. And whenever, we have to create a new system, we use that template. But then it's a living document. So when somebody runs that system and we realize, I hit an issue, and actually these steps should be inverted or whatever, or actually you need to be sure and call this person at this time to remind them to bring the delivery, whatever, we just update it, right? And so it's this living system that gets better every time we run it, saving us more and more time. So I just want to talk some tools now about all kind of things that we do, little quick things to save time. So number one, before we go anywhere, shortcuts on Chrome or Mozilla, whatever, you need these in your life. So this is like Gmail, contacts, calendar, Google Drive. This is our task manager, Slack, our CRM, QuickBooks. This is our issues and victory log, our mileage log, just all these things that we use on a daily basis are just on our computers. So we can move fast. Say like, oh yeah, will you send that to me in Slack? Yeah, done, right? Like it's already there. Also, you can do this same kind of thing on your phone. So if you ever go to a website on an iPhone on Safari or on an Android on Chrome, you click the three buttons, the options buttons, and you say save website to home screen. And then you have a hot link on your phone to go to like a Google form or to your whatever website that you need to go to a lot. Save that to your home screen, because then it's a click away. You don't have to like go typing it in. All right, but then let's talk Gmail. So one of the best unknown features in Gmail are templates. So in an email, right, if you go down here, click these three buttons and click templates, you can, if you write an email and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to send that like 17 million times, then click templates, and then you scroll to the bottom of your templates and you can say save template, right? Or you can update a template, or you can just use a template. So like here, Overall's Farm membership, whenever I have a customer, somebody that's inbound and they're like, oh yeah, I'd love to be a member, then and we have slots available, I just load up this template and I'm like, I send it to them, right? I didn't have to retype it. I have to go find it. Anything is right there. It literally took me like 30 seconds. We use Drive for everything. So we have all our food garden support stuff. We have all our farm stuff, including any document, presentation, form, what have you, spreadsheet having to do with these different things. We have every single photo that we've ever taken as a business, of customer projects, of workshops, of trainings. They're all organized in our photos. We have tons of internal resources in here as well. So it's just like, it's our master file for everything, and it's accessible to the entire team. So there's none of this like, oh yeah, will you send me that document? No, it's in the Drive, right? All you've got to do is go up here and search and say, yeah, it's for Rebecca Lewis. It's the site visit. And then it just pops up, right? And then everybody has it. So that saves everybody time. A couple of years ago, because we had this system of quoting jobs, right? We also did that for small projects. Even things like deliveries, we were quoting them. So we had a Google form intake, but then we had to like write a manual estimate for all these little nitpicky things like deliveries, like a garden maintenance visit, yada, yada. And it was killing us, killing me specifically, because every time I had to send one of these estimates and trade the emails back and forth to get a customer's like address and phone number and how big their garden was and yada, yada, it took me 30 to 45 minutes per estimate. And then about half of those customers just walked away. And so I was spending an hour and a half of time per estimate, per bid that was actually accepted, for just like nitpicky, dumb stuff. Valuable to the customer, but very small peanuts for us. And so in order to automate that, we started a web store. Our website is overalls.life, and down at the bottom are like, if you want a magic mix delivery, if you want seasonal support, or you just want like a real simple garden, people can just order them online. And now here's what's really cool. So they order, they pay, right? So now we don't have to collect payments. That's time. We don't have to trade 17 emails back and forth talking about price and this and that. We only talk to customers once we have their order in hand and their money. Hello. Also we save the time of having to figure out financing, because we have the money up front. It's like pre-sales every day. And then not only that, all our orders, when they come in, they, this thing will go away. Here we go. They auto post to Slack. So here's our Slack channel. And new orders come in. What's this person want? They want 4 yards of magic mix. So the whole team can see this. Our team planner now has access to this right off the bat, knows like, oh, I got to get another order in the lineup. And so it's like, it's seamless. Automatic payment, automatic order, no banter back and forth. And then only at this point, then do we start talking schedule with a customer. So we save so much time. Speaking of schedule, go away thing. Great. We use this program called Calendly. You can see it up here, Calendly. And this is for booking consultations. So if you want to book a consultation, then we actually have this link embedded in the website here. So you say like, this is how it works, da, da, da. Sign up here to book a consult. And people can choose times that are available. You don't have to trade 17 emails. They just click here and then they say, well, when do they have spots available? Oh, we have some spots in a couple of weeks. Okay. They can book a time that works for them. If they need to reschedule it, they can do it themselves all on the program. Then they get a reminder email, right? All of this is automated. All this doesn't take any time. It doesn't require all those back and forth emails that just suck the life out of you. Another major tool we use all the time are Google Forms with a Zapier backend. So we use a Google form and it goes into a spreadsheet in Drive, of course, but also almost all of our Google Forms will auto post somewhere. So not the mileage log, but like our overall, our customer satisfaction Google form. We have one for our issues, right? Our issues auto post in our Slack so that we can talk about things. So one person has a problem, like yesterday, my teammate had ordered a delivery, but then it didn't arrive on time, and she called to check in on it, and the lumberyard was like, what order, right? So she logged that, and then it posted to our Slack, and then we got to banter about like why that might have happened and develop solutions. So now we're not having to wait for 6 months and experience that pain over and over again, because the Google form, which is a hot link on all our phones, right? We have an issue, we click the button on our phone, it pops up, we fill out the Google form, it goes in the spreadsheet, but it also auto posts to our Slack channel so that then we can resolve it and save time in the near future. Another tool that we use is ConvertKit. It's an email marketing kind of software, kind of like MailChimp, but it's like text heavy, so it tends to get through some of the advertising filters better. And we use this every spring and fall. We're in Florida, so we have great seasons in like September through November, and then February through April. And at the front edge of that, we want to alert everybody like, hey, it's time to replant your garden. Here are resources. And if you need help, then call on us. But we don't have time to send. Look at this, 345 emails are going to go out to repeat customers twice a year, right? And it's going to be a series, and it's going to be useful information for them, but it's also going to remind them that we exist and this is how you can order on our website. So this is a huge time saver to automate that type of emails. Hopper HQ is a little social media scheduling software that I use. And, there's two ways to think about saving time. There's like total time saved, and there's also how do you save time when you're in crunch mode? So when I am out on a project helping my team implement a design, right? I don't want to have to be trying to develop social media content because like my brain will just explode. So how can I post at important times for my customers, but not have to do it at the same time, right? And that's social media scheduling. So I can, on an office day, I can take all these pictures that are in the drive, right? And then I can put them in our schedule, and that is a wonderful time management, even if it's, it still takes the time to do content. This is, I'm trying to get to our recurring, I'm going to show you on QuickBooks. So QuickBooks saves time, right? Because it's like a good accounting software, yada, yada. But also for our overall farm, we have all of these subscribers, right? You can use, I don't know if you know this, but you can use QuickBooks for recurring payments. And so we have 30 families that are on a monthly billing cycle. And that doesn't require anyone to send a invoice or collect a payment or deposit a check. All of that is just automated. So that's huge time saving. We do our payroll through Gusto, which is fantastic. We pay, I don't know, $75, $85 a month or something. And they handle all the back end. They handle the like sales, the tax payments and such, the calculating this and that. And it takes me about 10 minutes maybe to run payroll. And I hear these stories of like businesses doing payroll and it takes them an hour or 2 or 3 or 4. So I don't have to do that. It takes me 10 minutes. It's awesome. Another tool to know about is Upwork. This is a fantastic, it's like Airbnb for talent all over the world. So we had a design, most of our garden builds are actually quite simple. They're like raised beds, but I had a customer that wanted a garden. It was in the ballpark of like 20K. And I certainly didn't want to like build out a $20,000 garden and then him say like, oh, actually, you know, can we move this over here? No, right. So we needed a to scale design. And we're a small team. We do not have an in-house designer. And it's kind of like a one-off thing. We do a few designs a year. So on Upwork, I posted my chicken scratch design sketch from a console and said, hey, look, I need to turn this into a Google SketchUp to scale design. Who can help? And within a couple of hours, I'd hired actually 2 folks because I was experimenting with it. And I had designs back in my inbox within 2 or 3 days. I didn't have to learn SketchUp, right? I know something about it, but like I didn't have to do it. These folks are way better qualified. And so I got to focus on the things I was good at, and they got to help us out. By the way, you can hire folks from all over the world in labor markets that are very different than our own. So like, you know, it saves money too, is what I'm trying to say. Somebody from Peru is helping me out, and $20 an hour for really professional design work. So I lean into this this platform called Hello Pareto. It's it's an Airbnb service for basically assistance. They don't use that word, but it's for folks to do digital support. So if you need something researched, if you need a spreadsheet developed, if you need some kind of like recurring emails, I had a bunch of backdated social media stuff, content that I needed managed. I just reached out to them, and they're actually in our Slack. So I can send a message on Slack and say like, hey, here are the links to Google Drive folders, blah, blah, blah. Can you handle this thing? And they say, hey, we got it. It's fantastic. And then the last tool I want to leave with you is just our, we use Todoist. It's a task management. It's a checklist is what it is. And we use it. I have my short list here, but also like I use this, like this is the things that I need to take tomorrow. Don't forget these things. We need to buy all of these things. And some of these lists are private. They're mine, right? Professional list for me. Many of them are shared lists. So these are all the jobs that we have to line up. These are our upcoming events. These are crop selections that different customers have requested that we'll be taking to jobs. And everybody can see those. And so like if one person goes to the store, they don't have to say like, hey, do you need anything from the hardware store? No, it's in the checklist, right? So you just, when you go to the store, you check the buy list and you're like, oh, somebody needs zip ties. Let me take those back to the farm, right? Saves tons of time. So those are tons of different ideas about how we save time through all these different platforms and tools. Let me just run through one example in full, because I presented all these different pieces, but it's hard to see how they like fit together in a unit. So we have our overalls farm subscription you pick, right? Here's just the beauty of all these things fit together. All right. Let's say somebody says, oh, I want to be a member, right? Then we have that template email that we send them. In that template email is the link to a Google form, which is the application, and a credit card authorization form, right? Which they can fill out and attach within the Google form. So when they apply, then we have everything that we need from them. That kicks off an automation with this tool I didn't talk about yet, but you really got to know about Zapier. It's like a connective app for doing automations for people that are not coders. So when they click submit on their application, they get an email saying thanks and hey, when are you available for a farm member orientation? We get an auto alert in our Slack that tags our farm manager. And in that message, there's a link to our orientation SOP. And that way the farm manager can refresh on their system. Excuse me, where do we go? That customer is auto added to our contacts, which are shared amongst our team. And so if the farm manager needs to text them and say like, hey, look, I'll be at the farm on Tuesday afternoon. Are you free to get oriented? Right. They already have that information. Their credit card information is in our hands, so we can set up auto billing on QuickBooks. They're automatically added to a ConvertKit onboarding series so that they get a weekly reminder about the farm and information about it, about harvesting, about how they can, as a farm member, they can host their own events on the farm. And we have all their information so we can do a customer profile so that we can continue to learn from our customers what they really want. So we make sure we're aiming in that direction. Operationally, in terms of the farm, we use signs on the farm as a kind of a green light to say like, hey, this is ready to be harvested. All of our signs are saved as templates on the drive. There's an SOP about how to make signs with all the relevant links and templates. All those signs have information about how to harvest crops. So when customers come, they don't have to text us and say like, how do you harvest mustards again? No, we don't get any of those texts because the sign itself has the information that they need and it's in front of the crop that they're trying to harvest. Then farm members actually have a harvest log, which is a Google form, and we help them put a hot link, the little save to home screen on their phones when they come for orientation. So they don't have to like check out, they don't have to weigh anything. They just go on their phone, click the button and say like, hey, I harvested some lettuce, right? And then they leave. Within our Slack channel, our partner who grows our starts for us is on our Slack. So when we need more lettuce starts or broccoli or, getting ready for tomatoes in the spring, we shoot her a message and say, hey, look, next month, can you bring us X number of trays of X, right? So it's like all integrated, and every step of the way, it's saving us time and helping us deliver that value to our customers. What I want to leave y'all with is this, a couple of things. Number one is all of these things that we talked about are cool and sexy and they work for us, right? We lean into those. But it's really about the learning. It's about iteration. It doesn't impress me when an organization is awesome. It impresses me when an organization can continue to learn and implement and improve. Can they continue to grow with their customers? How do they keep improving? And for us, the two main tools that we do achieve that by is our issue log and our victory log. So whenever, that headache happens or something unexpectedly good happens, we get a really big job or like something was much more easier than we expected, or serendipity happened, we log those so that we can learn and work on replicating what worked and avoiding our headaches. So let me leave you with this. Every day you have to make decisions about what you do. And most of our time is spent working the system, right? It's like, this is what we do day in, day out. But we also need to allocate some of our time and effort and creativity to work on our system. And the working on the system is the highest yield time saving. because when you work on the system, you can eliminate the things that are waste, and you can streamline the things that are creating value for customers so that you can do them better, faster, cheaper. And another way of thinking about this is that when we work, the way to get more done faster is that we can work harder, right? To save time, we can work smarter, or we can work more bravely by like eliminating things that aren't adding value, or taking on whole new ideas that are kind of like the creative destruction idea. If you have questions, shoot me an email. Also check out those resources. Just go to overalls.tips. That's the hot link to our resources page. Keep up the good work, and thank you for your time.